Hello, ARC family. Welcome to the ARC journey. We're continuing our God story with Rob, Dr. Guy, sharing with us. And before he begins, I just want to do a shout out to those in California who are going through the horrible, horrible fires right now. And I have not heard or seen a way to be able to effectively contribute yet as a region and denomination. So watch for that news as it comes out. We might know that by the time the compass comes out, and we'll let you know there. Um, Rob, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's good to be here again and to tell some of these stories. And I like showing some of the pictures too. So the the building you're looking at there might not be familiar to you. Maybe it is. It gets a lot of traffic from across the country. This is a picture of the Mennonite Meeting House in historic Harmony, just north of Cranberry, Pennsylvania. And it's got its own history in its own right. But I'll get to that in a minute. As you know, the last two sessions, I made reference to the Mennonite legacy that provides a substantial backdrop to the Allegheny region. And I wanted to further unpack that today, again, because it's huge, not just in our history, but it's a tremendous defining strain in our DNA. And I think it's helped me to be able to identify that and um, to live into its nobler qualities and to be on my guard against the shadow sides of it. So um, I think, I mean, I'm not sure that the Church of God has done an adequate job of cherishing and articulating our history anyway. We've done a good job in some ways, um, and there's a lot of room for other dimensions to be brought into that storytelling. And I think that's what's kind of driven me over the years is to start filling some of those gaps, bringing it to life, helping us realize that to learn from this is not just to fill our heads with the past, but to discern into the future how our identity and our calling and our convictions lead us into the future and into the great commandment and the great commission. So as I think back to the Mennonite strain in the past, I anymore I can't think about the Mennonite strain without going back several hundred years. Um, we don't know these stories, unfortunately, but I guarantee you, if I walked up the road to my Amish friend, who is the elder of the local Amish community, he would pull out the volume in German of the Martyr's Mirror, and it tells these stories of the persecution from 400 years ago and the names of Lycan and Latshaw and these other names that are so much a part of the Allegheny region history. It's the same people, same families, and it just you trace it back to basically where there's a fork in the road, where at some point those Mennonites became involved in the Church of God, and that's really the story for today. How did that happen? Um, if the William Penn created an interesting colony that solved the persecution problem for the Mennonites. All of a sudden, and he advertised it, Penn's own cousins were the first uh, Dutch Quakers to come here, and they started Germantown, and that opened up the floodgates. It took another generation, but all of a sudden, those persecuted, displaced Mennonites, many of whom were incredibly wealthy, just had the wrong religion. And they came to Pennsylvania for religious freedom. And there were a few pockets, but the Barkeys, the Latshaws came early. Many of them settled at what's called the Salford Mennonite Church out in East Penn. I don't know the the towns very well, but it's near Harleysburg nowadays. And the early cemetery, those ancestors are buried there. I visited those graves. And out of that community in the mid 1700s came one of the foremost American educators, Christopher Dock. He's still studied these days by educational circles because he believed in personal attention, personal positive affirmation, and what you would picture Mennonite education to consist of, he embodied. And um, that is part of our Church of God legacy too, because his students were some of the ones that came to, he died in around 1771, right before the revolution. So his students were the ones that, as older adults, came west. And this building you're looking at here is the first Mennonite meeting house built west of the Allegheny Appalachian Mountains. It was built in 1825. What else happened that year? Weinbrenner started the Church of God. So it's that close. We're looking at this timeline. The basically Abraham Ziegler, one of the wealthy Mennonites in the East, saw the westward movement. Um, Historic Harmony was already in existence. It was founded by one of those sectarian groups, the Harmonites, one of those, oh, I can't think of the word, but kind of a cult-like group. And they were ready to move. They had all these brick buildings, warehouses, barns, and all this stuff. The asking price was $200,000 in 1815. That is a boatload of money nowadays. Um, but Ziegler negotiated down to about half of that and promised he would sell his wool exclusively to the Harmonites. So for $100,000, the Mennonites bought a village and then built this meeting house right outside of town. And in the cemetery, behind that wall, are many of the founding families in the Church of God. I can't, not going to name them all, but the Shantzes, the Rices, the Barkeys, and that's where we go next. Henry Barkey's parents are buried behind that wall. This is the little church he grew up in. He was born in 1810, so he was a teenager when this was built. What was happening in that village? He was related to the Zieglers. His mother was a Ziegler, and uh, he was caught up in that dynamic. He was groomed to be a merchant, and very much bought into the Mennonite vision of a village. It takes it takes a bunch of people all bringing their gifts. You know, the Lord's picture of the body. We bring what we are and we do it together for the common good, and the village works. Barkey grew up in that environment, believed in that Christian vision, and what disrupted it was something we just came through. There was a pandemic. Cholera came through in 1830, 1831. Both of his parents died, and all of a sudden he saw the village in a new light because that village was taking care of him as a teenager, filling in the void. I believe his sister died at the same time. So, uh, huge impact on Henry Barkey. And it was also quite a catalyst behind his spiritual growth. You know how what tragedy does to us. And it deepens us, it raises the questions. Life really isn't just about being a merchant and making money and finding my way in the world. And so it's interesting. 2 years after he died, he marries. He gets married and he marries a Mennonite girl, Elizabeth Latshaw, whose father, interestingly enough, lives up in my neck of the woods, uh, became downtown Barkeyville. If you know where the truck stops are, Latshaw's little stone trading post is right under the old truck stop there. So, how they met, I don't know. I'm still working on that mystery, but there was an overlap early between those Mennonite groups. And it's possible, quite frankly, that Latshaw came out with Ziegler, and then from Harmony was looking for more land to build another circle. And but he settled up here, and Henry Barkey was one of those hungry, spiritually hungry young men that was involved in that Harmony Mennonite community when John Hickernell started stopping there. And John Hickernell and some of the folks working with him started those meetings. And Henry Barkey was one of the first responders to those meetings. He became a leader very quickly because Hickernell started those meetings in 1839. Um, and I just looked at this, but I don't remember. But it seems to me that Henry Barkey was admitted as a minister within 2 years after that, and he was a founding member um, in the Allegheny region in 1844, and a leading member of that community. And it was by 1848, so within less than a decade of Henry Barkey's leadership, he's already writing to John Weinbrenner saying, things are not going well here. Harmony is not filled with harmony. Harmony is not interested in mission. They're not really interested in the Great Commission. Yeah, they're living good Mennonite lives, but they're not at all interested in outreach, not at all interested in the gospel ministry, and I'm not quite sure what to do. And we may wonder about that because we just, the Mennonites we know in the 20th, 21st century have established quite a reputation for their global outreach, for their crisis response and their compassion. But if you go to the Historical Society of the Mennonites, like I did, they will tell you they had no interest in that back then. So that fits our story. And Barkey was frustrated, and it was so I said 1848. He writes to Weinbrenner. 1850, he moves. He leaves historic Harmony. We have a church there for another couple decades, but it dwindles rapidly. And as you know, like today, it's like, where's that? Never heard of it. That's pretty much how that story ended. It's known as a Harmonite and a Mennonite community and the Church of God. I know where the building was, and I'm probably one of the few people on the planet that could point to that location. But one death leads to a rebirth, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next. Henry Barkey doesn't throw in the towel and give up ministry; he just relocates and keeps his vision, follows the leading of the Lord, and what we do know in Church of God history is born in a new location. And on that note, I'll probably wrap it up for today.
So it sounds like what you said is the Kairos moment for Barkey was the cholera epidemic and the actual physical coming together of community and seeing that represented, which is going to be so profound.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an impact to take with us. So I would say keep shining and we will talk with you next week. Keep shining.